1966, I was working on a documentary on the history of housing in Canada, how housing and small settlements developed all over Canada. And we were working in the province of Saskatchewan, and it was a small crew, and we were staying in a motel because we had to go and photograph a sequence at a potash mine. And Saskatchewan is a very, very flat province. You know, there's corn growing there and so on, but it's flat as a draft board. Um, but this potash plant was in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Saskatchewan, and there was a little town, I don't know, about 30, 40 miles away, and we stayed at the only motel there, for preparing ourselves for the visit to this potash plant. Why did we go to the potash plant? Well, because that was the reason why this town, a town, was developing in that area, and how and why communities gather and spread, as because workers for this potash plant, as would happen around a gold mine or an oil well, and potash is a white substance that comes out of the ground. They use it for fertilizer. And in the morning, we were driving to the plant. It was a absolutely crystal clear day, and we could see way ahead in the distance, about 40 miles away, this column of white dust like smoke coming from the potash plant, and a cloud above it. Now, obviously, this was coming from the mining that they were doing. And eventually we arrived at the plant at the main gate, and the guard at the gate said, "You guys better get down there as quickly as you can, because there's something sitting up there in that cloud of white dust up there." And we said, like what? And he said, "We don't know, but up in that cloud of white stuff up there, there's something inside there." We drove down to the plant, and I said to the director, I said, "Look, can I set up the camera and put on a long lens and see if I can see anything in there?" "Yeah, sure." He said, you go ahead and do that while I go and talk to the mine manager and plan the day's shooting." I set up the camera in the parking lot, and put on a long lens. I don't remember exactly what focal length it was, probably 300 millimeters or 600 millimeters, something like that, more likely 300 millimeters, and trained it on that white cloud that was sitting above the potash plant. And then about 20 minutes later, there was a slight breeze came up, and this cloud cleared very, very briefly. And in the cloud was a glint, a hint, a kickback of something metallic. And there was two members of the company were standing around with me smoking, and they said, "Yeah, there it is, there it is. Do you see it? Do you see it?" And I turned on the camera and ran some film. And the breeze came along again, and there was this object, as clear as bell, the circular disc-like object with a tripod-like structure underneath it, with a triangle connected to this tripod. In other words, think of a triangle, and then three prongs connecting it to the disc above it, all very metallic, no windows, no nothing, but like silvery color, like metal. Like a silver coin, aluminum of an airplane fuselage. And I ran film. Now, people have often said to me, "Well, how big was it?" That was before the days of the 747 jumbo jet, but it was the equivalent of what eventually became the 747. It was that big. Wow. And I ran about maybe 150 feet of film on it, and eventually the breeze left and the cloud thickened up again and was hidden. And we got on with the business of filming at the plant, but I never stopped looking up at that cloud, and neither did anyone else. But I separated the film, that 150 film. I took it out of the magazine, canned it up separately, because remember, this is the days of film, not videotape. You had to have it processed before you could see anything, and get it into a can, store it away, and then send it back to Montreal for processing. I used to send all our film back every night by going to the local railroad depot and send it back on the train all the way across the whole of Canada to Montreal to go and get processed at the lab at the National Film Board. And I made a note on every can of film you send back. You usually send a list of what you've shot on it, which you tape to the can, and you send it back, and you tell the lab, send that to the editor, and let the editor put it on the shelf until the director gets back, so that we know what's on each roll. And on this particular roll, I said, "Unknown material, hold for our arrival," which I did, and I sent it back that night. And some weeks later, we eventually ended up back in Montreal, and now it's time to look at the rushes, or the dailies, as we call it here, the film that we had shot. And, we went into the theater and sat for a number of hours through a lot of very boring material of housing settlements and, little small towns and whatever else. And at the end of it all, the projectionist in the projection room said, "Do you want me to show this other reel that you sent here that says unknown material on it?" And of course, we said, yeah, I forgot, put it on. And he put it on the projector and ran it. And there it is. There is this object sitting in the cloud, this aerial, whatever it was. I think the term today is UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, and not necessarily UFOs anymore. But anyway, those days, we would have called it a UFO. So we looked at this, and the director said to me, "What the hell was that?" And I said, "I have absolutely no idea." And he said to the editor, "Maybe we should send that down to the States. They have an organization down there, I think in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, that's doing research into this kind of stuff. It was called Project Blue Book. He didn't call it by that name, but we did. Now, here is the problem. We were filming on what is known as reversal film and not on negative film. There's a big difference between the two. Reversal film, negative film, when you photograph it, you get a negative image, and then from that you make your positive and you make your prints. Reversal film is what we used to use for photographing Kodachrome slides. In other words, the film that you use in the camera is the one that comes out positive, not negative. So the film that you use in the camera, you make a slide of that and you can project that. So it was reversal film. It had a positive image. So it didn't need a print. It was the original camera, the original material from the camera. We should have made a copy. We didn't. We sent it to Project Blue Book. Frankie Johnson was the name of the secretary of the camera department. I shall never forget her name. She sent it by the courier service down to the States, and no one thought about it for another, 3 or 4 weeks. And one day I went into the camera department and I said to her, "Frankie, did we ever hear back from those guys in Ohio about that film that you sent them?" She said, "Oh no. What's the time in Ohio?" She said, "Oh, I can call them up now." So she called them on the phone, and they denied ever receiving the film, even though we received from them. They had signed the paper acknowledging receipt of the film. But what we were told is that the film never arrived. They said, "What film? We never got it." Again, a denial, a blatant denial that they had this. Well, I think the time has come, because there's too much evidence now that there is too much stuff out there that we cannot ignore this anymore. I think this recent example of the USS Nimitz fighters on exercise off the coast of San Diego probably tipped the scales in the direction of actually making the revelation finally that we will be told, it's time to admit that these objects have been visiting us for many years, and they predate Roswell. Roswell, of course, is one of the most famous ones in 1947, the so-called crash that the United States Air Force eventually spun a lie and said, "Oh, it was only a weather balloon." It wasn't a weather balloon. It was a spacecraft that crashed, and bodies were found. And those bodies were they're still kept in cryogenics today, either somewhere in Area 51, or I'm now hearing that there's a place, an underground facility in Utah, where there are bodies being kept of extraterrestrials. Who knows? But it's been going on for a long time. I have personally met Jacques Vallée a number of occasions. I attend many conferences. I've gone to UFO conferences, and we have a thing here called Contact in the Desert once every year in Palm Springs, and I go to that religiously, where we investigate, rewriting human history, rewriting ancient history, looking at UFOs, looking at ghosts, goblins, and things that go bump in the night. It's a great gathering of people. 90% of them really you can dismiss, and 90% of the folks who spin these stories is a bunch of hogwash and nonsense. But it's the 1% that's important, and that is what's important. And there's still so much out there that we don't know. So I did a show for the History Channel years ago. This is before Ancient Aliens came out. Ancient Aliens is one of the most popular shows on cable television here in the States. But I did a show for the History Channel that predated that, and I think we called it Ancient Aliens or something to that effect. I do believe it's actually on YouTube. I must check out and see if it is the show that I did. But it took the story right back. There are even illustrations on walls in Egyptian tombs of circular objects in the sky. And we know that this has been going on for a long, long time because there's so many records. And Jacques Vallée has amassed an incredible collection of paintings and artwork going back to medieval times that depict objects flying in the sky that look like, flying saucers or whatever they are, but they are unknown aerial objects in the sky. And he's brought out this amazing book, which is now available. It's quite expensive, but it's an incredible book. It's a coffee table book with amazing illustrations showing this phenomena. He doesn't try to pretend that he knows what they are, and he doesn't try to explain them away. He just offers you the evidence. There it is. People have been seeing this for centuries. And, I have asked people in the tribal areas of South Africa, do you ever see things at night? Do you ever see things in the sky? And a friend of mine was once visiting a group of Sun Bushmen, which are the last remnants of a Stone Age society. They live in the Kalahari Desert in Botswana and parts of Namibia. They're nomadic people. And he was doing research with them. They move around every day. They break camp and move somewhere else. They live off the environment. They hunter-gatherers. And he was there with a translator, and he wanted to do an investigation into the trance dance that they do. These people do an amazing dance where the women drum and the men go around the fire, around and round and round and round and round until they go into another state of consciousness. And it almost allows them to time travel. It always allows them to do something. It allows them to do remote viewing. And what they do is they can see where the wildlife will be tomorrow, where they can go and have a successful hunt. That's one of the purposes of these trance dances. Where will they find their prey? To live off. And these trance dances are pretty profound. And these are the people who do these amazing rock art. There's rock paintings that exist all over the Kalahari Desert that depict this. And that some of them even depict strange beings. And I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't aliens. They may well be that people have seen. And so anyway, my friend was at this camp filming these people going around the fire. It was at night, but it was a video camera, and so it was quite sensitive. And in the middle of this trance dance, one of his translator said to him, "Look up, look up, look." And he looked up, and he took his camera and he pointed up, and there's this disc above this camp. Probably a quarter of a mile high is this silvery disc. You could see it as clear as daylight, hovering. And then, he pans down again to the trance dance going around the fire, and he shows me this footage. And I said, "So, Dave, what was it? Did you ask?" And he said, "Yeah, I did. I asked. I said to my translator, 'What is it?' And the translator said, 'Oh, don't worry about that. Those are just the people from the other world. They come all the time. Ignore it.'" It's like, that's bus number 14. It comes every day, at 11 o'clock. Just ignore it,